Will Noorjahan Akbar please join me at the podium? Despite being only 20 years old, Noorjahan Akbar has already had a tremendous impact on the world through her visionary activism, passionate articulation of gender inequality, and tremendous drive. When Akbar was 6 years old, the Taliban arrived in the city in Afghanistan where her family resided. They fled to Pakistan and lived there for several years. Despite the financial and emotional hardship, her parents prioritized an education for her and her sisters. They sold Akbar's mother's wedding ring and dress to pay for their education. Her parents not only ensured that their daughters received an education, but they also taught nearly 600 Afghan refugees math, English, and computer science at a language center they opened in Pakistan. In 2001, her family returned to Afghanistan and started an English language center for 400 women. Akbar began to make her own mark on the world at an early age. She worked as a writer and a translator at several organizations, and through a job at a German education program, she worked with children to write a book of 6 short stories that was distributed in Afghanistan. She later designed a program called Stories to Heal and worked with 100 Afghan orphans on creative writing projects. More recently, in April 2011, she co-founded Young Women for Change, a nonprofit organization of volunteer advocates who are committed to improving the lives of Afghan women. In 1 year, they formed a male advocacy group, organized monthly lectures on gender and women's studies, collected books to build libraries in Kabul and Helmand, launched a women-only internet cafe in Kabul, and organized the first anti-street harassment march in Afghan history. Education continues to be central in Akbar's life, and she received a scholarship through the Afghan Girls Financial Assistance Fund to attend Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, where she is a rising junior. Akbar is a talented writer who has been published by the New York Times and Al Jazeera. Her activism work has been covered by media worldwide, including the United Nations. Recently, because of her remarkable bravery and activism, Newsweek named Akbar one of the 150 fearless women in the world and invited her to the Women in the World 2012 program in New York City. Noorjahan Akbar, for your dedication to the field of education, as well as for your commitment in the pursuit of gender equality, I commend and admire you. It is with great admiration that the National Conference for College Women Student Leaders, organizers, and attendees, including myself, honor and recognize you as a 2012 Woman of Distinction.
Good evening. It's so wonderful to be here and see all these amazing, powerful, important women. I come from Afghanistan, and throughout my life I've seen gatherings of men deciding about what women should do, what women should wear, where women should go, what women shouldn't do, which is even more important than what they should do. And one thing I've learned, I think that the most important thing I've learned is to learn to question all the rules that exist in the society. When I was growing up, my father was an author, a journalist, so we often had these meetings in our house where people would gather and talk about politics, talk about what would happen if the Taliban go or the Taliban come or this goes or that goes. And usually there would be no woman in these meetings. Not even my own mom would sit through them, even though my mom was educated and a teacher. And often my father's friends and the politicians or friends or media friends who would be there would say, Ustad Akbar, which is like what they call my dad by, your daughters are so manly. Look at them, they can discuss politics so well. So I grew up with that. And it was a compliment to be manly, to be something that I am not, something that I am happy I'm not. You know, womanhood is amazing, and I think we should be proud of whatever we are and not be taught to be men or to be accepted only if we are men. Then growing up, I watched all these women who were activists and who were in our circle of friends, but I realized that these were only a few women in a country where only 10% of women still to today can read and write. I also learned that about every 2 hours we lose one woman to maternal mortality, and that's way more than the number of men or women we lose in the war on terror or any other war in Afghanistan. I also learned that being a woman in Afghanistan, you learn to be quiet, be obedient, not speak out loud, not speak around men, not question anything, and just obey whatever laws they put in front of you. And I think what I learned to be is to be helpless, to be completely dispowered, completely a weak, disabled person who can't do anything for herself, who can't decide, who can't question, who can't choose what way to go. And I think I saw this more in the women around me than I did in myself, because I at least had the right to get an education, which is a right that the majority of girls in Afghanistan still don't have. Only 1 in 10 Afghan girls graduate high school to the day. And I think this taught me that there was a huge burden I was carrying just because I was a woman who had the opportunity to be educated, like every one of you here. We have a huge burden to carry, and we will meet people who will tell us every day of our life that we should not strive, that we will fail no matter what we do. And I think our strength will be going back to our core and saying, you know, I'm an educated woman. I have the opportunity that the majority of women on this earth will never have. And I therefore carry a burden to help them, to be there for them, to be their voice, to share their stories, and to do things for them that they now don't have the power to do. I think another thing I would just love to share with you all is that when we started Young Women for Change, my friend Anita Haidari, who's the co-founder, and I, we went to Afghanistan. We had a meeting with 75 women, and all these women seemed excited and so happy to be there and willing to work with us. And then we had our first planning meeting on what to do, and we had about 4 women show up to the meeting. And then the next meeting, we had about 2 women show up. And the last meeting, we had only the 2 of us left. So people will back off. Your closest friends will back off if you choose your passion, and they will decide, you know, this is not for me. I don't want to support this. This is not the right thing to do. And I think the important thing is to believe that it is the right thing to do. If you're helping one person, it's the right thing to do. And now YWC has 50 volunteers, men and women, who work. And through this journey from 2 people who are absolutely hopeless to 50 people who are working every day, putting their lives in danger, and I mean literally putting their lives in danger, I've learned that every day we wake up, every day is a struggle. For every one of you, you don't realize this because you think, okay, I just go to college another day to study, to sit through a boring sociology class, whatever. But I think it's important to see that every one of these days is a step towards that future where you will be able to help others, that future where you will be an empowered person to help those who aren't. In this journey, we have received threats. We have had our family members back off. We have had our family members say, stop, or we had a member whose brother said, stop working, or I'll throw acid on your face, to her sister. We have had our closest friends betray us. We have had media backlash us. We have had religious leaders delegitimize us. And you will have this too. I mean, this is not particular to Afghanistan. You will have people saying all sorts of things about you. But the important thing to remember in your heart is that you are privileged to be where you are. And because of that privilege, you have a responsibility to help those who aren't where you are. Thank you.